Hey players, here's the truth. Most RPGs take so much time. They bury you in rules, prep, and complexity before you even roll the dice. I wanted all the delving without the crawl, so I built RipCrypt, an RPG that sprints. And in this deep dive, I'll share the exact frameworks I used to start the game's design, its foundation, 4 core principles, and how to use them to keep your own game designs on track. Whether you're a player, a homebrew GM, or an indie designer working on your own system, you'll walk away with some new tools you can put right to work. 1. Start with a clear foundation. My first step in creating RipCrypt was what I call active thinking. This is where I sat down and thought really hard while writing bullet points, a brain dump list of everything that came to mind about the game. My focus was to get every thought out onto paper. I did this while the ideas were fresh in my mind, and I was feeling that early spark of inspiration. And I cannot emphasize this enough. At least for me, I have to actually write everything down until I actually see my ideas on paper. I know I'm just thinking about designing something, which is just another way to procrastinate. Writing is truly where the rubber meets the road, and until I can see it, I can't really make sense of it. Next, I began building on some of the ideas, adding the thoughts that follow naturally from seeing everything out on paper. And then I began organizing and grouping similar ideas together. In my case, I did this on 3x5 cards so that I could organize and carry my ideas with me. I would often spontaneously add new ideas and make edits over the next several weeks while my subconscious percolated. Once I had a rough sense for everything written down and loosely grouped, I spent a great deal of time proving the thinking by asking questions. And not just any questions, but the absolute hardest Shark Tank questions I could think of. Questions like, what is this game really all about? What's it about? What problem does this game solve? Why is this game needed? Who is this game for? And where and when is this game played? Just getting through all this took me at least a month. The initial brain dump goes pretty fast, but in looking back now, allowing time for everything to process really helped bring some much needed clarity early on. Finally, I drafted all my answers to these questions as assumptions into a formal document with the fancy title of Foundation. I also transcribed my card topics into the doc as an appendix. I didn't know for sure, but I had a whole lot more clarity on what this game was about, what problem it solves, why the game is needed, who the game's for, and where and when it's going to be played. And with this kind of clarity on my goals and assumptions for the tough questions written down, it was time to move on to the next step. 2. Identify your 4 core principles. After setting the foundation, I began drafting keywords that I could use to make decisions with, focusing specifically on areas where I was unwilling to compromise. This is when I created the rule of 4, which reads as, no more than 4. 4 is memorable, 4 is enough. There are 4 elements, directions, seasons, and life stages. 4 is found everywhere in sacred geometry and the material world, providing structural balance and completeness. 4 provides a grounded, stable foundation for forming and developing a world from which complex structures and connections can emerge. This rule of 4 is the parent principle for RipCrypt, and if you deconstruct it, you will see this rule threaded throughout the entire game. With the rule of 4, I wrote, 4 core principles for RipCrypt, which are easy. Players are able to approach, learn, understand, and play the game. Fast. Players are able to resolve outcomes quickly with minimal friction measured in minutes, not hours. Deep. Players are continuously engaged, satisfied with their progress, and invested in continuing after their first session. And fun. Outcomes are both anticipated and unexpected. Players enjoy the interactions, challenges, and immersion of the game. Conversely, the game is not, hard, slow, shallow, or boring. Easy, fast, deep, and fun. These are the 4 core principles used to design RipCrypt. This became very important further down the path, when I would inevitably be drowning in complexity. With each tough decision, I used this framework to ask, does this make the game easier or harder? Faster or slower? Deeper or flatter? Fun or boring? These 4 core principles became my North Star, serving as a guide, helping to ensure that the system evolved in alignment with my original inspiration for the game. And without this clarity up front, it would have been so easy to spiral and get lost. 3. Collect real-world insights. Next, I started looking for insights in our 5e games and immediately saw opportunities everywhere. I began making a list of pain points, small things at first, like, hey, when creating characters, teaching the 6 fairly complex words for ability scores, 3 of which have 4 syllables, constitution, that are awkward to use while speaking and are often abbreviated or shown as acronyms on character sheets anyway, all of which slows learning. Rolling ability scores require that you have chosen a race and class because of modifier soup, requiring new players to read 112 pages before even getting to ability scores. Then in actual gameplay, the question of what die do I roll? Without memorizing the tables, the rulebooks get cracked over and over for just basic game mechanics. There's redundancy for things like hit points and hit dice, which are effectively the same thing, and abstract numbers for things like armor class that are vague and unclear to everyone. These are just some examples, and after a few sessions, the list had grown quite long. And our actual gameplay progress? Painstakingly slow. Each of these insights supported my premise that there was a very real opportunity to make an RPG that is easier, faster, and just as much fun. So with clarity of purpose and supporting qualitative data, I started digging in. 4. Establish the framework. I started by writing a framework for the system by outlining each core component and the properties for each to function. For example, characters require rules for abilities, skills, and equipment. Combat requires rules for movement, attacking, shooting, magic, armor, damage, and so on. Once I had all the core components and features outlined for the system, I took an editing pass using the 4 core principles. Would this component or feature make the game easy, fast, deep, or fun? If the answer was no, it got dropped immediately. This process alone saved me a year of writing and editing. I did my absolute best to simplify and edit the framework down as brutally as possible before writing anything in detail. 5. Start small and then follow. I started by making foundational decisions for the game. Simple statements like, the game is led by a keeper. The game can also be led by players or played solo. It will be fast enough to accommodate up to 8 players. Writing down basic foundational statements like this establishes goals for the system, which saved months of potential rewriting and redesigning had I started designing without them. Next, I looked at the smallest atomic units of the game. I wanted a grid-based system, so I started with the building block of distance. 1 space equals 10 feet for scale. This one simple rule started it all, leading naturally to abilities with movement and running, followed by the abilities of a hero. What are they called? How do I avoid long, difficult words and acronym soup? How to make them easy, fast, and fun. I also wanted a character sheet that fit on a 3x5 card, so I knew I would have to keep it short and sweet. I spent at least 2 months just on abilities before landing on Grit, Gate, Grip, and Glim. Now that's fast. Now that our hero has abilities, how do they use them? Actions followed naturally from there. So you can see how one simple statement, one basic rule leads to another, and they're all inherently connected. This is both the beauty and the curse of game design, because any changes you make downstream will reverberate upstream, leading inevitably to time-consuming redesign. Now that we've walked through the importance of starting with a clear foundation, identified our 4 core principles, and collected insights from the real world, and drafted a ruthlessly edited framework all before starting small, perhaps you've gotten a glimpse of what goes into a game like RipCrypt. With any new design, structuring what's swimming around in your creative brain with as much clarity as possible will save you countless hours once you truly get into the thick of things. Drop a comment about your own game design journey. What's worked well for your games? What's been a total and absolute dead end? And if you haven't already, check out the free RipCrypt Sprint Start. The link is in the description, and see for yourself just how easy and fast it is to rip the crypt. In the next video, I'll share some guidance to get game night moving with practical tips and table tools for super fast delve designs that only take a few minutes. I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching.